Hey everybody, I am Lieutenant Sarge, and we're doing a discussion. It's vaguely Gamergate related, or, it's more Gamergate tangential at this point. But I think it's going to be an interesting discussion, and I've got a couple folks who's joining me tonight. First up is one of the guys who's been on the stream before. His name is Archon. Archon, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and say hi.
Hey, this is Annihilator Archon. You can find me on Twitter at Jin King and DJINNCNGAN if you want to follow me there. Yeah.
All right, and then now the next two individuals I'm going to introduce is going to be a Scotty and an AJ. And as I introduce you guys, I might as well go ahead and get it out there. Since Gamergate is something that I'm familiar with, and one of the important things is disclosing people that you know or have personal attachments to. So Scotty is one of my good friends from high school. Scotty, you want to go ahead and say hi?
How's it going? I'm Scotty.
And
I've charged for a while, and he told me about this discussion, and I thought I'd jump in, so here I am.
And the other individual is AJ, last but not least. AJ is my younger sister. So, AJ, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm AJ, and I'm not a game creator of any kind, but I do love video games.
All right. So, the topic of tonight was going to be about game development and female game devs, but one of our primary people unfortunately had to jump out due to situations at hand. So if they manage to come back in, great. If we don't get them back in, then we'll just move on to other topics. But I'd like to go ahead and start us off at least with this main topic and go from there. So first off, I want to start off with AJ. Now, one of the big reasons I wanted to do this topic and get people who had practice with game dev is that AJ, being my younger sister, had expressed interest in game development. And I knew at least one person, which is Scotty, who had prior experience with game development. So I want to go ahead and start off with you two. AJ, first and foremost, go ahead and just talk a little bit about yourself and what your interest in games and aspirations to be a game developer is.
Well, as you know, I am an artist or dabble in art, and basically, really what I was just kind of was going into the development art-wise of the games. Didn't really go into it too far just because of life and all, but, I'm definitely interested. Didn't really know that there was many women in the field, however.
Just to help clear that image up a little bit, at first let me just explain a little bit of my background. When I never really did go into the industry of video game design, it was something that I had tried to pick up on, and I tried to learn. And it wasn't something that I was even really 100% sure I was wanting to go into. I really just wanted to, get the full details and see if it was something that I wanted to do. And so I went to, a art school that taught a bunch of video game design programs, and I had degrees in it. And while that didn't really work out, just because I found a different career, and I also really didn't like the way that the game programs in art schools were really taught. It really didn't feel like it was worth it. So just to clear that up, I'm not officially, I'm not exactly a game designer. I just, know certain programs on how to do, some development with it. That being said, when I was there in my game design classes, the amount of females that were there were just as much as there were dudes, really. And in a lot of regards, too, I noticed that it was even the girls that were in the classes that seemed to have a better grip on how to how to make art for games that were exactly what the details were supposed to be on how they were asked to make them. So a lot of them even did better jobs than a lot of the guys did. So it wasn't really so much of a surprise to me. And actually, I'm going to cut myself off. I'm hearing a lot of background noise right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, whoever has the background noise, if you can mute the mic when you have that going on.
I hear like a TV in the background, so like if it's if you're in a room, then keep the doors closed. But anyways, so yeah, I can kind of see where it comes from about how you didn't know that there were really a lot of girl gamers or a lot of women that were in the video game industry, but it turns out they're actually quite a lot. And in some of the game design studios that I actually went to tour and to check out. There might have been a little bit more men that there were women, but there were definitely women in there. And yeah, I don't know if it's like a society thing, like people think that there are.
Yeah, I guess they don't really show women really being like, you don't really hear about them as often as you do men, so it's like you don't see that. You just think, oh, there's guys doing this and that, and they get more publicity like women do, except for recently.
Right. And I don't know if apparently there are more men employed in the video game industry from what I've heard. I don't really have any facts on that, but that's just what I've heard. But that could mean either there are more applicants that apply for those jobs that happen to be male more than there are women, so that could be one of the reasons. But aside from that, there are really a lot of girls and a lot of women that are trying to get into the video game industry, and a lot of them are in it. But it was what the other person was explaining to me earlier before we got this recording set up, that it all depends on the amount of work that you do, and the more work that you do, like the more of a portfolio you have, the more drawings you have, the better your art becomes, and the more work that you've done, that's going to give you a better chance to get into the industry. So, I feel like it's one of those things that has to really be your passion, and especially if it's in like the art field. So, if that's what it is, then if all I got to do is just keep on working on it, and then once your portfolio gets big enough, then that's going to catch some attention. So that's the advice that I would give for what it's worth.
Now, I want to go ahead and bring Archon into the conversation just for a minute here. Archon, I think you had a couple questions you wanted to ask either one of them. Did you want to go ahead and bring that up right now, or you want to hold on to that?
Yeah, sure, because the question was, and it's not even so much a question, it was basically just a probe to kind of see where you guys stand on the whole idea that, women are underrepresented in the gaming industry, and, it's a boys' club, it's a huge sausage fest, there's just nothing but men there, and it's so difficult for a woman to get into the industry that it's almost sexist, because, you hear this all the time on Twitter. At least I've seen it often enough that it gets to be ridiculous. That people are complaining about it, and I was just basically I was wondering what Amanda's thoughts on that were, and then as well.
Okay.
Okay. So what is your thoughts on that?
Oh, that was the question. I don't really know. Go ahead and jump in, Scott, because I'm not sure.
Question. The people that are saying that, what is their basis for that statement?
Basically, that all of their stuff that they're seeing, all the statistics or whatever that they cite, and their personal experiences in the industry. Like how hard it has been for them or their friends, etc.
Okay, so it's people it's women that have tried to get into the industry and have failed, and they're saying it's because of sexism, because they were they legitimately turned down for being a woman, or is it just them?
Yeah, can you clarify the question a little bit? Are you trying to say what is our thoughts on the idea that there's more men than women in the gaming scene, or that it's because of sexism that there's more men than women in the gaming field?
It's kind of a mixture of both. And it's not even always women that are saying this. There are men that are saying it too, because their friends who are women are saying, it's so rough. They've been working on the job for maybe a couple months, and then they get let go for whatever reason. And usually, a lot of time, the people attribute it to because it's a boys' club, and they don't like having a woman in there, which would probably be considered sexism. And to some extent, they're not outright saying that, oh, they're all sexist. It's just, they don't like it because we're women. But that is implied in their assertions, yes.
Okay. Because that seems assumptive to look at statistics for, however many men there are in the industry versus however many women there are. To just look at the numbers, if the male ratio is higher, to automatically think that it's because it is a boys' club. Now, if there are a lot of women that are out there that have specifically been turned down or let go from their jobs because of their sex, then yeah, I'd say that has some merit to it. But I mean, I would have to be. It'd be hard to convince me of that unless there's an actual company that's doing such a thing. But yeah, it seems like instead of asking the question, well, why are there more men in the industry than there are women, if that's true, then instead of asking why that is, it's more like, it's got to be because of sexism or because it's a boys' club. It kind of feels like that's what's happening. But that's just based off of what I've heard from it. So
just to
I
clarify,
don't really know if that's the case.
Scott, you're thinking that the reason people think that there is sexism is because that it is a boys' club to an extent.
Well, I don't know if it is or not, because I haven't looked at the statistics. I don't know if there are more men in the industry than there are women. That's what I've heard, but I don't know that because I haven't actually seen those numbers.
So I just want to clarify: is that what your impression of what they're saying is?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, AJ, how do you feel? Do you feel that that's the case?
With Scott on this, I don't, without knowing specifically, but I think that, it kind of goes with everything. Any job out there is going to be harder for women anyways, so and then the games, men's kind of started it out, so I think it's harder for women to kind of break into it just because they were already there, and then now it's just we're trying to get into it. But I'm just going off of without knowing the specifics.
Now that's a good question because I think if I remember correctly, there were some female game developers really early on in the 70s and 80s. I'm not 100% certain on that. Scott or Archon, do either of you guys know if that is the case?
I'm not familiar with the 70s or 80s because I'm the younger generation, right. So I probably wasn't. I wasn't around at that time, so I couldn't say.
Scott, what about yourself? Are you have any knowledge on the topic?
Not really. I mean, going off of just a guess, I would say that maybe not so much video games, but more computer programming or computer jobs like that. Probably there would be a little bit more women than there would be women in the video game industry at that time. But I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, my point was kind of, it's slow moving, and I think that women are just, like Scott said earlier, they're having trouble just getting into pushing forward.
Well, one question I had for you, AJ, was Well, you said earlier that you feel that is with any job women have a harder time getting into. Why do you say that?
Well, since like the 50s, or whatever. Damn it. Sorry.
Well,
take your time.
yeah. So Scott, I got a question while she's thinking on that. What do you think? Do you think from what you've seen that at least as far as gaming and not necessarily other jobs that it's harder for women just in general, like that there's a bigger barrier between them getting into the field?
There could be.
Okay, and
I'm not saying that there is or there isn't.
What would be some reasons? Is kind of like what I would want to know.
Stop. There's huge feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, now are you guys getting an echo right now?
No, not really.
Okay.
No.
Okay, technical difficulties and go.
So, as I was saying, I've covered what I was trying to say, but women historically they have been pushed out of the workplace, and then recently now we're kind of moving into it, and we still have somewhat of the difficulties, but they're way broken down now than they were. And I don't know about the gaming community, like I said earlier. I'm not really sure about that. Me, from like Scott, he was saying, kind of sounds like they're not really. It's more of like who's the best of the best of the best, and that's how they're going about it. Instead of, oh, let's pick this guy, let's pick this girl, and yeah.
Archon, I think you were trying to say something earlier about when we were doing the whole working through our technical difficulties that we didn't really manage to get picked up. Did you have something that you wanted to add on to this conversation?
Specifically, just that, there was multiple people that I've seen on Twitter that are actually in the development or in the game dev business right now that are women that specifically disagree with the fact that it's, difficult to get in. Because, talking about women in the 70s and 80s and everything when this stuff was new technology, that was a different time. Sure, it had been, I can't remember specifically when women got the right to vote and everything and women's suffrage movement, all that stuff, but it had been quite some time after that. So, sure, women might not have been in the same situation as women are now, but it doesn't mean that they were, barred from entering either. But I'm trying to kind of get away from that because I don't think any of us really know much about that, so there's no point in even really discussing it too much because, we don't really have much information to back it up. But, the whole idea that women are kind of barred to entry in these days is ridiculous. And a lot of the women actually in the business that are seeing this disagree with that because a lot of their colleagues are women and, their personal experiences differ from these other people's personal experiences. So right now it's basically a he said or a she said situation.
Now this is interesting because I've seen both game developers that are women say that there's problems, and I've seen game developers that are women say that there's not problems. So it's very interesting, and like you said, we would probably need to get someone from either camp in order to further elaborate on. But this is more just kind of, I guess, a little bit of outside perspectives. It looks like Scotty, you're probably the only one that has any really kind of experience, and even if it's only just getting some school. I think I'm getting some background noise from somebody. I don't know if someone's got a TV on. If they do, just kind of like try to watch out for that. But now, one of the things that I've heard kind of repeatedly talked about is that women aren't wanting to get into video game tech because they feel it's a boys' club, and the part of that mentality comes from the fact that they view games as sexist. And I wanted to go ahead and fill this question to you, AJ, first is, do you feel that games are sexist? And if so, do you think that that would stop you from wanting to get into game dev?
I personally don't think that they're this. I've grown up playing video games my entire life, and never once has it ever crossed my mind, oh, this game, I'm playing Samus right now, this is totally sexist because they got rid of her suit or blah, blah, blah. I don't feel that way. Never have. I mean, yeah, they have girls with the boobs hanging out and whatever on like Mortal Kombat or something, but I mean, they have way worse stuff in TV and on movies and stuff than what they do in video games, so I would say no.
Yeah, I feel that like there are those elements in a lot of games where women are hardly wearing anything, and it's like all kind of gung ho, and it seems very that like it's appealing to males, but that's just one example of the thousands of games that are out there. Like, there are plenty of games that don't have any of that at all, and that just goes to target audience, I feel. Maybe that particular game or game company is trying to, go for the type of client that wants to have, a bunch of boobs everywhere and things like that. And it doesn't really reflect the entire industry. Maybe instead of reflecting the industry, it reflects more people who play games. Because if those are the ones that are making the most money, then those are the ones that are that people are most interested in playing video games. So, maybe I don't really think that labeling the video game industry as sexist just based on that is really fair.
Okay, hang on a second. All right, sorry about that. We just had to deal with some of the background noise that's unfortunately been kind of propping up here and there. Scotty, can you kind of reiterate what you were saying? I know it was like weird.
What was I saying? Like,
I think you were talking about video games and how characters they maybe like
right
dressing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there are games that are out there that totally look sexist because like the women are all half naked and like the men are the protagonists and like things that are kind of like that do kind of come off as sexist, but those games aren't reflective of the entire video game industry. Like there are different games. There's thousands of games that are out there and that are for a bunch of different target audiences. There are games like Grand Theft Auto 5, which have a specific target audience, and then there are games like Angry Birds and a bunch of others that like either everybody can play or a few people can play or like they refer to a specific type of person. So I think it's really unfair to just look at the games like Grand Theft Auto or Dead or Alive or the games that come off as sexist and to say that it's reflective of the entire game industry. But I mean, since we're all kind of really speaking from personal experience here, my personal experience on just who plays video games more, it does seem to me that there are more guys that play video games than there are girls, and as far as my personal experience goes, just because I've run into a lot less guys that say I don't play video games at all than I run into girls that say I don't play video games at all. So like I feel like girls stay away from video games a little bit more than guys do, is from my own personal experience. I don't know if that's a common thing or if that's just people that I've met, but that's what I've seen.
Well, I know that AJ had already said that she kind of felt that way. Archon, as a guy who's been fairly pro Gamergate for this last month or so, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think?
Well, I find it very telling too that there was actually a study done by scientists about sexism in gaming, and there's actually kind of a separation in what you two were discussing just now, because just because video games might possibly be sexist, it doesn't mean that the actual industry is sexist. It's two different things. It'd be like saying someone's painting is sexist, so therefore all painters are sexist. That's not necessarily the case. And I'd have to find the link because I don't have it off the top of my head. But I actually have seen studies, and it's actually spreading around all over the place thanks to Gamergate, that scientists have done saying that video games are not inherently sexist. And it's kind of interesting, too, because there was that study a while ago talking about violence in video games, after Columbine and all that shit with Doom. Does video games cause violence in school and stuff like that? There was a study done about that, and they found that there was no causal relationship between video games and violence. And so it's not that huge of a surprise that there's no causal relationship between video games and sexism either. Sure, now, there might be...
Well, just 1 second. This is an interesting topic, but I know, Scotty, you only have a limited time window to really remain in the chat. Do you want to go ahead and kind of switch the focus, since I don't know if there's anything more that we can really add to the game development, or do you want to go ahead and just go into this topic here?
I don't really have anything further to give on game development. As far as the division between the sexes in the industry.
Okay. Now, so, AJ, do you have anything further that you want to add about or do you have any questions you would like to just kind of bring forth that maybe Scotty or Archon might be of an assistance at the current moment?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so you guys want to go ahead and just go into this next topic about the actual sexism gaming, what it is, what isn't sexism that Archon sort of started to bring up?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, Archon, I sorry to interrupt you. Either you or Scott, I sort of cut both of you guys off. Well, either one of you guys want to go ahead and continue. I guess, yeah. Archon, I'll let you start off, and then Scott, you can keep going.
Yeah, because I was still talking. Yeah, basically, it was just one of those things where, and I think it was kind of telling that, and I can't remember. Some of my memories are all jumbled together because the shit posting on Twitter where there's edited images and what actually happened, kind of jumbles together. So I take this with a grain of salt and say that I might be wrong on this, but I remember seeing an image of Anita Sarkeesian on the Colbert Report, and he asked her, well, you say that video games are sexist, but do they cause violence too? Because it brings up that that distinction of, well, if they cause violence, then, or if they don't cause violence, then why do they suddenly cause sexism? Because it seems like they both fall into very similar categories. Because if they're inciting violence in kids or young adults, there would be some kind of mechanism in there that would also somehow incite sexism. And if the violence isn't being caused by it, then why is it magically causing sexism for some reason, It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I see your point with that, because, I remember back when all the news stories and the media kept talking about video game violence. This was back in, 1998 or so, when, Mortal Kombat 4 was out, and everybody, was making a huge deal out of it, and the Columbine incident was a big play into that. But I feel like this isn't really so much similar, because with the violence in video game topic, there were kids that violently acted out that were playing a lot of video games. I haven't really heard of any stories of people being sexist from playing video games too much, aside from just random people who happen to be gamers that are acting like dicks to women.
Right.
But I feel like there's even less evidence that points to the conclusion of video games driving sexism than there is of video games driving violence.
Now, AJ, how do you feel? Do you feel that games might be causing sexism, or that there is a sort of overarching sexism that's present with, as Scott said, that's kind of generated by attitudes of gamers? Because I know you play games like Call of Duty and Mortal Kombat. I believe you play like Black Ops Online, if I remember correctly, like multiplayer. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? Because I that is one of the topics that is actually thrown around quite a lot. Is that the gaming culture is just filled with like sexist attitudes. So do you concur with that, or do you disagree to some extent?
Every time I've ever played a video game like Call of Duty or anything online, and people know that I'm a female because of my name, but I've never had anybody be sexist towards me, or have heard anybody doing sexist. I've heard people trash talking each other, which is normal, but never anything specific like that. So,
Scott, did you have anything else you wanted to add on that?
Not exactly. I mean, frankly, it's been a minute since I've really, actually not recently. I've been going online on Call of Duty and playing recently, and like I've been hearing chats back and forth, and any trash talk that usually goes on, it's not because the person is just saying a bunch of hate speech, but because it's more like two people are just annoyed with each other, and then they'll trash talk each other. It's but that's just what I've seen, and I haven't. Like maybe there are a bunch of sexist people on there that are saying things, but that I don't think that has any correlation to video games at all. I think that's just I think it has more to do about upbringing than it has anything. But yeah, that was all I really have to say about that.
Now, Archon, I had a question for you. Wasn't there that study that was released that basically they had done a 3-year study determining that video games do not cause sexist attitudes amongst players? Do you know of anything that study on? I can't remember if it was like in Germany or if it was in Britain, but I recall it was in some country outside the States.
Yeah, that's actually the study I was referencing. And as I said, I don't have it in front of me because of my situation right now. But it's one of those things where I'll have to actually provide that to the other two because it is an interesting read. And yeah, it was a 3-year in-depth study about video games and sexism, and it found no discernible link between video games and sexism.
Now here's a question I have, because I see this brought up by certain channels such as Extra Credits, where they'll try and say that games kind of discourage girls from wanting to get into them due to the content of the games, such as big boob figures. And I know you guys have already kind of talked on that a little bit, but they say that overall that games that have violence in them are not very appealing. And there was actually a recent video by Extra Credits that I was watching. And by the way, I really have gotten disappointed with their content for the last few months. I just want to put that out there. But they had a recent video saying that there's gender mechanics related to a game where you have characters that will be specifically related to a certain gender, such as a big muscular guy will be the warrior, whereas a thin, attractive lady will be the archer. And I wanted to know what your guys' thoughts on those sort of stereotypes. I mean, first of all, do you guys think that those are those do they exist and to what extent? And then do you think that they contribute to an atmosphere that is sort of off-putting to females within the gaming field? And I guess I'll start off with you, AJ, since you're the resident female in the discussion.
I mean, they do have like those men, they look like abnormally huge, and then the women with whatever. But I don't think that because, like, for an example, my fiance, he has 2 little sisters, and they come over and they'll play video games. And just an example, they will play Mario Kart, and they don't just want to pick the princess, they pick all the characters. And if we are playing a violent game, they will pick, for an example, Mortal Kombat. They will kind of gear towards the females, just because it's like, oh, there's a girl, I want to play as the girl, kind of a mentality. But it's not like, oh, I have to play with the female. But I don't think that girls really, I don't think there's any, because I like to play shoot 'em up games. I know a lot of females who do like to play shoot 'em up games. And then I also know a lot of females who don't. They just want to play like Angry Birds or some stupid Diner Dash game or something. And I think it just really depends on the type of person, not really the gender.
Well, what do you think, Archon? What are your thoughts? Because I think you've probably heard at least some of this before, correct?
Yeah, and a lot of what she's saying is right. When you look at video games as they are today, sure, there might be a lot of them that have those stereotypes. Like a perfect example would be like the Xbox games for the Incredible Hulk. It's got this big, bulky, muscly He-Man that kicks ass. And then, you've got all these, assisting characters, or, you got Betty, who isn't all that strong, and she's just there for emotional support. Could you say that was sexist? Yeah, you could say that was sexist. But, if people think it's sexist and they don't like it, then they don't have to buy the game, and they don't have to play it. And then there's plenty of games where people take their vision for what they want to create and go completely out of the norm. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Bayonetta. Bayonetta is a really good example for that, because she's the main character. She may not be, all bulky and muscly and tough, but she does kick ass. She does have her own power to her. Sure, a lot of the people on the other side of the fence are going to be like, but she's dressed to dressed like a floozy, or she's dressed like a whore. And it's just kind of like, well, you know what? She's a woman. She can dress however the hell she wants. It's like, that's not okay. Women can't dress however the hell they want. Like, that's kind of stupid to say that. So, there's plenty of video games that play into that stereotype that people say, that it's too stereotypical and stuff like that. But there's also plenty of examples where they don't. And then, as AJ was saying, when the kids play it and stuff like that, sometimes they go for, stuff that, that they're being, I'm trying to think of the word for it, not pandered to exactly, but, basically the roles that the creators were trying to interest them in, sometimes they are interested in them, but sometimes they're not. It's kind of like, it kind of goes back to that thing where, a straight male will sometimes play with dolls, or a straight girl will sometimes play with power tool toys. Not everyone's going to conform to the same idea of how the world works.
Scott, yeah. I did want to have something I wanted to bring up about the Bayonetta subject, because I think this would be interesting. But I wanted to see, did you have an opinion on this current topic, right, about the stereotypes of the genders, and whether or not do you see that they could facilitate a problem?
I agree with both Archon and AJ about that. As far as what AJ said, yeah, I think that it's totally dependent on the person. What kind of games that you go for, and if there's anything that goes into the mentality of, oh, I'm gonna play these Dead or Alive games, or I'm gonna play like Grand Theft Auto and go around getting prostitutes all the time. If it would be a lot easier to make the argument that video games in general are sexist if there wasn't so many examples of video games that have none of that involved. Because, let's say you're a person who's trying to, find a video game to play, and if all that was out there were games like Grand Theft Auto and, Mortal Kombat full of violence and, like games that are just full of like nothing but sex and violence, then it would be, then that point would be a little more sound where they're trying to say that video games are sexist, video games are violent. That's not the case though. There are like thousands of games out there that you can find that have none of that in there. And as far as what Archon was saying about people who play them, it just seems to me like if games that are making the most money that have those qualities that people are finding sexist, I don't think that it's really a reflection of the industry as much as it's a reflection of the clientele that buy video games. Because, sex sells, and if it sells that well, then it's not because the industry is pushing it so much, it's because it's what people want. And, if you're trying to make money off of a video game, then, you're going to get more money if you get people what they want. So it's, it feels like, but it doesn't even feel like that's the case, because if it were, then why would games like Angry Birds, be so popular? So, yeah, I agree with both what they're saying in regards to that.
Now, the reason I wanted to bring up the Bayonetta one, because I think that was a very big controversy that was brought up. For one of the big things was that, and this is I'm directing this one towards you, AJ, to get your opinion on this. Bayonetta, first of all, AJ, are you familiar with the game Bayonetta? Do you know what that is?
I do not, because I have never played that, no.
Okay. Essentially, it's a game. It's like an action game where you go around beating up bad guys or monsters. To sum it up very generally, but the character you play as is a very promiscuous character. She's sort of got like a stripper-esque figure, and she uses fighting moves that are very. I guess the best way I could say it would be, I don't know, slutty. I can't really think of any other word other than promiscuous, and basically she'll fight her enemies by doing like BDSM style moves or lap dances, right? And she wears a skin tight outfit that just like wraps around her body. Like if you think that Tomb Raider might be sexually objectifying female characters, Bayonetta sort of takes that a notch further. And what I was wanting to know is like, would you be willing to play a game like that and then feel discouraged from playing a game, a fighting game or an action game because a character is like that? And you play Mortal Kombat, so I guess you could probably use Mortal Kombat as an example. And the reason that I bring that up is that Archon has provided us with a body image of the character, so I'll kind of link that in the chat so you can just look at it. The reason I also bring that up is because Bayonetta, when people started getting very upset about the second game being released, it was brought to the attention that the character was originally designed by a Japanese artist and developer that was a female, a female developer that designed this character. And it was kind of interesting that they were saying that this is a sexist character, yet the character itself was created by a woman. So it was sort of like, how do you make a sexist character as a woman? But I kind of wanted to get your opinion on that first, AJ, and then I'll move to you, Scott, if that's okay.
Sure.
So do you need me to reiterate? Because I know that was a lot that I just said. AJ?
Yeah.
Did you see, first of all, do you see the picture of the character? Well, I don't know if you can see.
Yes, sorry, I forgot I had my mic off. Yes, I can see the picture of her.
Now, a character like that does like revealing fighting poses and stuff like that, would that make you not want to play the game? If you see trailers or you see the picture like that?
No. I would be more off-putted by playing Grand Theft Auto because you sit there and you grab a hooker off of the street and you can shoot her in the head or beat her to death or kill some person on the side of the street than some. I would actually find it more comical than really anything else.
Actually, I think Archon, you say you want to make a point. Go ahead real quick.
Yeah, on the subject of Grand Theft Auto, and I understand, like the whole lifestyle of crime type of stuff that Grand Theft Auto goes for. Yeah, that's probably not going to be for everyone. And I've only played Vice City, I think, which is the third game, and it really even wasn't my cup of tea. But I didn't necessarily hate the game. But a lot of time, and I know you didn't say this. I just want to make that clear. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with who Anita Sarkeesian is.
I think AJ, you probably saw like one video of hers that I sent you, and Scotty, I think you might be familiar with her. The tropes versus video games.
Mm-hmm.
So they're roughly familiar with Anita Sarkeesian, but they're not probably as they're probably not as knowledgeable about her as maybe you and I are.
Okay. So, yeah, I just wanted to get some background on how well they knew her. But basically, there's one example where I believe she made a Tropes vs. Women video a while back. I don't remember specifically which one. But it was talking about GTA, and it was interesting, too, because they talked about that same situation where, where you can pick up a hooker and you can shoot him in the head, you can kill him and everything like that. And because of this, the game was, sexist or it hated women. But it fails to take into account that you can do that to men too. It's not like making all men invincible and they can't die, and telling you go kill women, go run them over and shit like that. You can do that to anyone because that's real life where you're a criminal and you can do that thing. It's like it's a sandbox type game. You can basically do whatever you want as long as it's within the realms of reality. And not only that, but in the real world, a hooker's job is to get paid for sex. So, if they're going to be included in the game, why would they not be able to do their job? That'd be kind of silly. It wouldn't be realistic in that sense.
How do you feel about, what do you think,
right.
AJ?
I agree. I wasn't meaning it to be as how you, yeah.
Right, yeah, I made that clear. I wasn't insinuating anything sexist, but I wanted to bring that point up.
Well, I do want to say, because when you first brought it up, I had thought that you were saying that you don't like playing Grand Theft Auto for the same reason. So maybe you should clarify. Are you saying that you wouldn't want to play Grand Theft Auto 5 because it has the ability to kill hookers, not so much that you would want to kill them themselves while playing it?
My point was I would be more off putting on that game because you can just pretty much kill or do anything because you have free reign on that game. You could do anything to anybody, not just women, like
right.
he was saying. You could do it to anybody. And that, to me, like, I've seen people play that game, and I've seen, like, them hack and do their stuff, and I know somebody who is actually a hacker, so I've seen the kinds of stuff that they do to other people, and that is way more disturbing to me than, say, what was that, Bayonetta game?
Okay.
Right.
No, actually, this brings up a good discussion. I'll give you 1 sec, Archon. Because I want to know. So your thought is twofold, that you can run around killing anybody in a free roam game like Grand Theft Auto. And I would assume that would include other games, maybe like games like Postal 2. What's the difference between, say, doing that and a multiplayer game like Call of Duty? Or the game Hatred? Well, the game Hatred, I guess, is really more just a style of Grand Theft Auto, but even more further. Like, what would be the big thing? And I want to give it to AJ and then Scott, if you guys would be okay. Like, what's the difference between killing random computer-generated characters in a free roam game like Grand Theft Auto versus Call of Duty? AJ, if you can clarify, because I know you play Call of Duty and you play Mortal Kombat. Both of those games are very violent, and I want to know like why you think one's worse than the other.
I guess it's really because it's more realistic, whereas if you're playing as... I mean, I guess Mortal Kombat 2 is realistic. They have a lot of blood, and you can, like, cut somebody's head off and stuff. But, I don't know, it's just like you're walking around and you have more of a choice, and it's more of like... I don't know how to describe it.
It hits too close to home.
Yeah.
Okay. Scott.
You kind of seen how those people really actually would be, I guess you would say.
Here, let me interject here. Basically, you empathize with the people that are, like you empathize more with the pedestrians and stuff that you'd be mowing down on the street because they're innocent,
right.
Or because you wish you wouldn't want that to happen to you someday. Versus someone that is kind of not a realistic character like Raiden, who's a thunder god, or Scorpion, who's a demon, and it's kind of unrealistic to begin with.
Right.
Okay, Scotty, I know you were wanting to say something, so go ahead and speak your 2 cents on this.
Well, I was just wanting to chime in about GTA and the whole Bayonetta topic. With GTA, just to give you an example, the thing is, you can do anything that you really want in GTA since it's such an open sandbox game, especially with GTA 5. For example, my ex, she never played like any video games like at all. Like she was like, not that she hated them, but that she just never had one and never like really got into them. And then when I got GTA 5 and I was playing it for a little bit, she watched me play it and then started playing it herself. And all that she would do in it is just, race speedboats and go hunting. Like, that's all that she did. Like, just, went and just had fun with the whole, big open sandbox world in it. Didn't kill any hookers, didn't kill anybody, really. And the game didn't force her to kill anybody, like, unless, she played the campaign and, had to, kill mob bosses or something. So it's like, yeah, all that stuff for, like, killing people, like, randomly on the street. Yeah, that's an option. Even though, like, when you do that, it's like it punishes you by sending the cops after you. So,
I got a question on that. If you guys don't mind, real quick, because the going around killing people, especially the way AJ you sort of phrase it, seems like if you go around killing people within the game, whether in Grand Theft Auto or Hatred or whichever, that was seen that person's disturbing. Now, I know AJ and Scotty, you guys have met my girlfriend, and, she's foreign. She might be a little culturally different, but she's not really big into the gaming scene. And I let her play the game Prototype. And if you're not familiar with that, it's very Grand Theft Auto-like. And when she finally got a chance to get a hold of controls, she just went around chopping through civilians with her big claws and grabbing, women and men and throwing them into the distance as far as she could. And, just kind of like fucked around in the game. And I'm trying to figure out, it's like, for all sense of purpose, she's not like a demented person who's going to go out on a killing spree. She's just fucking around in the game. What's the difference between that and a person doing that in Grand Theft Auto, even though there's not hookers in Prototype? Archon, I think you say you want to make a point, or Scott, do you want to add to that?
I just think that it's all about, like, if that's all that you're doing in the game, then that might, like, if it's really that entertaining to you to just keep, like, killing people, like, for no reason, like, over and over and over again, then maybe, like, I would raise an eyebrow to that. But that's not the point of the game. The game...
Well, it's... I'm sorry, I just want to be clear. It's just sort of like, hey, this is amusing. You're grabbing somebody or grabbing a car and chucking them into the people. Like, I've seen a lot of people act like that. Several of my coworkers, heck, I don't know if you've ever played the game Postal 2, but it's a game that allows you to do that. And sometimes that's just sort of the fun of the game, is you have a virtual world and you just go in there and hack and slash. And you depending on what the creators allow you to do, it can be really fucked up.
Well, I think that goes back to what AJ was saying about how like it does kind of hit too close to home because GTA is like you're not like the guy in Prototype where you have like powers that makes you like fly around and everything like that. So there's a fantasy element in that game. But with GTA, you're like just a person who just has a lot of ammunition. So maybe that has something to do with it.
What do you think, Archon?
Yeah, I kind of have 2 points to make now because it's been a little bit, but yeah, the whole fantasy element thing. See, I don't have so much of a problem with it. Like, if all people are doing are killing in there, I really don't have a problem with it, even if it's not the sole purpose of the game. Because a lot of the times in some video games, you get to experience things that there's no way in hell you'd be able to do that in real life. Like, there's some games where you get to fly around in an alien saucer and basically nuke cities and shit like that. And does that mean that people want to go around in an alien saucer in real life and do that? No. But as you said, Scott, yeah, it is like a fantasy element, so there's not really a problem so much with that. But just because it hits close to home, and this goes out to both you and AJ, even though it hits close to home, do you think that there should be any, maybe laws or rules saying, hey, maybe you should not make games like GTA or Patriot or Postal? Maybe you need to cut down on the violence and stuff?
Scott, I'll let you answer that first because I know you got to be leaving soon. So you want to go ahead and fill that.
I don't think that there should be any laws or any mandates against that because I think that if people are really, really, really that upset about it, then they're just not going to buy the game and it won't make money and then they won't make another game like that. I think that that's really the best way to determine whether or not like if a game is worth making. Not in the sense that do whatever it takes to make money, but it's for example, this goes back to Bayonetta. I played both of those games, Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2. And the first Bayonetta, I noticed it was a little bit more blatant in the sexuality of it. Like there was a bunch of cutscenes of main character that's just like throwing her hips on all the enemies before she's killing them and things like that. And it did get a little annoying to constantly see it over and over again. I think they were kind of trying to go with the whole sex sells thing a little bit more. And in Bayonetta 2, the main character was dressed a little bit more modestly. We saw a lot less of the whole sexy, strip dance moves displays. Yet both of those games, like the Bayonetta 2, got a pretty high score rating from people who reviewed it. And not just because it was on a newer console and it looked a lot better, but just because like almost everything about it was better in terms of looks and in terms of gameplay, and there was just a lot less of the whole like she's a woman and she's hot, so let's play that up a bit. So it's things like that that makes me think that it's not about the sex as much as people are claiming it is.
AJ, I know we kind of had you out of the loop for a second. What are your thoughts on what's kind of been talked about, specifically the Grand Theft Auto element? Do you think that games like this, which are fairly violent, should there be laws against them?
No, I don't think there should be any laws or anything. Like Scott said, if you don't like the game, you're not going to play it. I've played it once, and I don't particularly care for it. I know people who do like it. But I think it just goes on your preference of whether or not you like those types of games. And definitely parents should keep their kids, be more aware of what their kids are playing. If they don't want their kids to be playing Grand Theft Auto, maybe you should test the game out first and make sure that it's the type of game that you want them to play. Because I know a kid who, one of my fiance's clients, he's autistic and he likes to play Grand Theft Auto, and he gets, because he's autistic and whatever, he gets a little bit confused sometimes, so sometimes he'll act and think that he needs to act certain ways like he does in the game. Not really sure where my point was going with that, but yeah, I think parents need to get control over the games. But No, I don't think that there should be any laws on them or anything like that.
I
And
agree.
real quick, I think Scott, your time is up. You got to be going.
Yep.
All right. So, do you have any final words you just want to add in real quick before leaving?
All that I really wanted to add in there was just kind of like, yeah, I do agree with what AJ is saying about how it's more upbringing and and it's more in the parents' control than it is anybody over what their child plays. So and I feel like a lot of people will argue that no matter if it has an M rating on it, video games are targeted towards kids. Because it seems like the M-rated games are they have a little bit more production value put into them. But I it feels to me like that kind of opinion is usually coming from people who don't play video games, because it seems like a lot of people who don't play video games that are adults think they still have this mentality that games are for kids, and kids. Video games are mostly played by children, which could be true. And I'm not saying it is or isn't, but I think that because of that mentality, that they think that any video game is just going to be, it's initially marketed to children, and having video games with adult themes on them is not cool. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done to change that, other than just more old people need to start playing video games.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Scott, for being on this, and I hope to have you back in another stream really soon. I guess the topic that we're going to kind of get into for the last few minutes of the stream will just sort of just be rounding up a little bit of what's been overall discussed. Maybe just talk about some of the morality of some of this, and maybe if you listen to the stream, what you missed out on, you can come back in and chime in some extra thoughts on it.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. See you later, boss.
Take care.
All right. So I guess we could just do a little bit more, if you guys don't mind, and I can just kind of facilitate back and forth discussion between you two, or let you guys just kind of have at it, since there's really only the two of you guys. Annihilator or Archon, you're more Gamergate centric, and as you could probably tell, there's different sort of viewpoints that my sister here has than probably some Gamergate prominent figures might share. So I guess this would be a good time for you guys just to kind of discuss different viewpoints, and especially because I don't think there's really any hostility here, which is one of the things that is usually propped up when Gamergate gets brought up, is that gamers just hate women being in the gaming field. First, I guess I could just ask you, AJ, do you feel that you are generally have been wanted out of the gaming scene, like that guys in general don't want you to be in gaming?
No, my entire life I've always.
Okay, sorry, we just lost you there for a sec. You were saying?
Shit, I forgot what I was saying.
So you just cut out there for a sec.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I never really experienced sexism the entire time I've ever played video games, and actually, from my personal experience, I've always been encouraged to play more, and I don't play enough video games. So,
which is funny because I think you stole all my video game collection, you little brat. So
actually, it's still at home in Mom's garage.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, she did initially still swipe some of my stuff, because I remember heading over to their apartment a few years back. So, but between her and her fiance, those two have a bigger game collection than I do by far. But so you, for the most part, you haven't felt outcasted or not belonged in the video game scene. You felt like you're more than welcomed into it.
Yes.
Just on your personal note, for your personal self.
For me personally, yes.
Okay. Archon, do you have any question you want to start off? Because if not, then I can just kind of continue with what we were talking about.
Mainly it's trying to think of how to word this. Well, because I know that you're not really quite that familiar with Gamergate. How much are you aware of? Like, because I'm not one of those people that's like, I've been here for 9 months, because I've only been in Gamergate for probably going on 2 months now. So I'm not, some hardcore, I've been here this whole time veteran or anything like that. But what are you aware of about Gamergate, or are you not aware of much at all?
Very little, just kind of the stuff that Jared's kind of shown me. I have seen the Sarkeesian video where she was on, I think, the Tonight Show, or with Steph Meyer, whoever it was. I am aware of a little bit of the scandals.
I think she's cutting out, unfortunately. I don't know if it's reception. Hey, sis, are you able to hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you've been kind of cutting out. You can keep going. It's just periodically you cut out for a sec.
Yeah, you guys, it's me. I don't know if it's my end or your end or whoever's, but yeah,
because Sarge and I aren't having problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably my end, but you'll cut out too whenever you guys are talking occasionally.
Right. You want to just keep trying a little further, and if it continues, then we'll just we'll continue this another time.
No problem. But yeah, that's just a little bit of the sex scandal and between the can't remember her name.
Zoe Quinn.
Yeah, a little bit about that, and that's pretty much about it. I heard a little bit of the so-called threats, and but that's about it.
Okay.
Do you have anything you wanted to add, Archon?
Not really. If I think of anything, I'll let you know, but not off the top of my head now.
Okay. I'll have to say, the Gamergate originally was supposed to be that the gaming community had generally been trying to get more disclosure, which is sort of a little joke that I added at the very beginning, is that I personally knew you and Scotty, therefore I should disclose the fact that I'm interviewing you guys or bringing you in the discussion. But the disclosure aspect is a thing that what was happening is that you would have either positive reviews or positive press given to people who personally knew each other or personally associated with each other, and would essentially sell the games on their platforms or give those persons a bigger spotlight than a lot of people either thought they deserved or that people thought should at least be given notified that, hey, this is someone that I'm doing a favor for. That they were not giving them the credit or the same amount of press that they would probably give somebody else, or they were giving them more favorable due to the fact that they personally knew them. That was sort of the bigger controversy, which kind of had been boiling for a little bit, but sort of was the catalyst was the sex scandal, because it was revealed that there was at least, I think, 2 or 3 people that had been confirmed that she had relationships with. Am I right on that, Archon?
Yeah, that sounds about what I would say too.
And what happened then is that it sort of spun out of control, with the two sides really getting heated up into a deathlock. The gaming community was really pissed about this, because the gaming community for, like, I would say about 2-3 years now has really felt attack from two different sides, or the religious right and the feminist left wing groups. And at the same time, there's been a lot of problems with game companies using really shitty tactics in order to basically squeeze as much money out of the customer, which I'm sure, AJ, you've probably seen some of that with downloadable content in games. And if you haven't, those are issues that gamers have had. So you have these problems that have been sort of circulating in the atmosphere, and for me personally, Gamergate, when it first initially started back in August, after the Zoe Quinn sex scandal sort of brought her, like, it sort of created like a focal point for all these problems just to burst out, where people were like, enough is enough. We want to start getting some better representation from the journalists who are supposed to be informing us. And then many of the journalists who were friends with her turned this into a narrative that gamers hate women and hate female developers, which is one of the reasons I really wanted to talk about this, is because I wanted to get your perspective as a person who's sort of neutral and out of the Gamergate sort of bubble, what your thoughts are. And it seems like you do have some concerns about female, or at least women, and the gaming tech, or you had some at the start. And I really wish we could have had one of our developers join us in the chat, but he wasn't able to. But
Or the other one we had that was a woman.
yeah, there's a regular, we have like a little small group chat that we do, and she was on the previous chat that I recorded, and I wanted to bring her in the
That's what I'm talking
discussion.
about.
I'm sorry, you're thinking of
I'm talking about Jennifer, not Allie.
right. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Allie for a moment. Now, okay, so here's a question for you, AJ. Because this gets brought up by, I would say, the opponents of Gamergate. This is kind of brought up. They say that games are problematic, or that they have inherent problems, and some of what you were saying is interesting because it is very similar to what they say. And I'm going to bring it back to the Grand Theft Auto, because I know you said that it's based on preference, but I want to know is, when you say that there's problems with the way people attack, and Scott was also, I believe, kind of seeming like weirded out that someone might go around killing. I want to think, is there any difference between killing civilians or prostitutes in Grand Theft Auto, besides the fact that it's more inherently realistic, than playing a game like SimCity and blowing up the city with, like, summoning meteors and stuff, or playing The Sims and drowning, your individuals who you can have day-to-day lives and children. You can drown them, or force them to where they can't go to the bathroom for long times. I mean, and on the website TV Tropes, they call this video game cruelty potential. I mean, there's so many games where you can be as ridiculously cruel as you want. I mean, you look at Zelda Ocarina of Time, you can go around cutting up chickens for example. So I want to know, like, why is it specifically the ones that are realistic, or that seem realistic, that are would be, quote, problematic? Is it just because it's realistic, or is there something else to it?
I personally don't really care for those kinds of games, so I'm not sure about the other games that you're talking about. Haven't played them. But
well, the games that give you the ability to do sort of like they give you multiple options and sort of free roaming. I'm trying to think of besides Mortal Kombat and Call of Duty and some fighting games. I'm trying to think of what other games you want to play.
Skyrim and Fallout.
All right, have you played either Skyrim or Fallout, AJ?
No, I haven't played those.
Okay, what's a few games you've played, and let's see if I can think of some examples in those.
I've played. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
I know you played Marvel vs. Capcom 2 because I kicked you and your fiance's ass in that.
Fighting words.
It's okay. I have to, because he was talking shit because he beat me at Mortal Kombat 9, a game I don't own, and I had only played it that night the first time. So when it came to a game that I did play, I fucking tore him a new one. And
I've played I've played Atari and Up. Are you looking for like a more recently game?
Games that give you a little more freedom.
One of the more recent ones, because Atari's graphics dehumanize the characters so much it's not even really noticeable.
Right. I'm trying to think of games that give you a little bit more freedom range. I don't know.
I don't remember the name of it, but you probably do because it was your game. Where you can have basically towards the end of the game, you can either become an angel or a devil. Fable.
Yes, that's a perfect example. Fable. Okay. Fable. I remember now. This is actually a great example because I remember you chose to be as evil as possible.
I did.
So, when you were being as evil as possible, what was some of the stuff that you would do in that game?
I think that. Gosh, it was.
And I think it was the version that had the prostitutes in it too.
Yeah, it was because I remember having sex with you.
Oh, she's kinky.
Here's dirty girl.
My sister is kinky. Oh God, this is terrible.
I think because I don't really remember, but I think I did a lot of stealing, and then there was like options within the game play itself where you can do something to make the game you can become evil or good. And I think I chose to go towards the evil path. I think
why?
Mostly,
why did you choose the evil path?
I know. Honestly, the main reason I liked the way the evil guy looked more than the good guy. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but
she had the hots for the evil guy. Like bad boys. She likes bad boys.
Well, I don't know if you could tell, her avatar is Harley Quinn from Batman. So.
Oh my God.
No, I got a question for Fable. When you did the evil route, did you sacrifice the kids to the devil to get power?
I don't remember.
Because I know that.
You mean sacrifice? Wait. You're talking about sacrificing your sister to get the Sword of Aeons.
No, it's either kids or there's like to get like a powerful like crossbow for like a demon crossbow. It's either kids or like civilians that you sacrifice.
Hold on. Okay, you're talking about Squirm's bow,
right?
In the first Fable, where you can sacrifice either followers, your wife, or any other commoners that'll follow you. I don't think you can do it to children because I think children were immune.
Yeah, they were.
Basically, you would go to the temple and sacrifice as many people as you could at midnight to get the most evil points possible to get Squirm's bow.
Did you ever do that?
No, I don't think I did.
You probably didn't know about it.
Liar.
So, okay, now, what's the difference between Fable and Grand Theft Auto if you're doing evil things in either game? Is it just the realistic graphics?
No, there's not really much of a difference, I guess. I mean, if you're wanting to just go around and continuously shoot people, or like in Fable, go around, kick people's butt and steal their money, I mean, and just do that and not do anything else, I mean, that's what you're going to do. That's what you like to do. But I personally don't find that entertaining.
But you just said that you did it a bunch just to become an evil person, so you didn't find it entertaining at all that you were going around killing innocent people and security guards?
Grand Theft Auto, I guess my real problem isn't really the killing in Grand Theft Auto. I just don't like racing games.
Okay.
So I don't really prefer racing games. That's the whole reason why I don't like playing.
Okay, so hold on. Let me interject here, because the racing games thing doesn't really have anything to do with this, because you specifically mentioned the fact that you could pick up hookers and kill them and everything like that. Because what he's trying to say is, basically, and I mean, obviously, this isn't a perfect analogy because we're talking about unreal characters that are made out of pixels.
They are, but the one is a fantasy, the other is realistic, but.
Right. But my point is, like
earlier, we were talking about the difference between Bayonetta and.
Right, sure. I know, but
okay. All right. Hang on. I'm sorry. Archon, finish real quick, and then AJ, go ahead and respond.
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking about in this specific instance because because I'm going to use an analogy here that obviously I have to admit to some point that this is not perfect because they're not real people that you're killing. But if you took a commoner out of Fable and a prostitute from GTA and put them on a scale in terms of how much their life has value, which one has more value? And, you know, and as I said, because they're not actual people, they don't really have value. But I mean, if you're going to say that they don't have value because they're just game characters, then you can't really say that killing them is problematic.
Well, you could, but you'd have to have a good justification. And I don't want to feel like I'm dogpiling AJ, as my sister. But I do want to try and get, like, I'm kind of just curious, like, what you see as the big difference. So you want to just reiterate that one more time real quickly, Archon, and then AJ, go ahead and respond.
Yeah, basically, if one video game character has more worth than another, even though, you know, their morality is basically equal, then why do you have a problem with killing one character in one game, but not really have a problem with it in another game?
Well, when I said that earlier, we were talking about Bayonetta and being sexist, and I was just using it as an example, really trying to get that far into depth with it. But I don't, honestly, I don't really see, it's just a game, like, it's realistic, yeah, like, there's actual, it looks more like in Pathology because you're walking around on a street and there's not, like, flying people up in the air and whatever, so people actually see that and they're like, oh, this could be what's actually going on, and that can confuse people, but it is just a game, and there's really no difference with killing on that game versus killing on Fable.
Okay, so inherently there's no real difference. It's more just the style and the presentation of the games that makes it appear different, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in the long run, that makes you that affects your preference, which is fine.
You're right. You brought up the driving thing, which I have to say, like, other than hijacking cars and running from the cops, I'm not, like, the biggest fan of the driving aspects. I loved Grand Theft Auto 3, but when I played Grand Theft Auto 4, which is the newest one I had played up to, because I'd played all the San Andreas and Vice City and all that, I was kind of getting fed up with some of the driving extensive mechanics because I don't feel like they were incorporated quite as well. But it just feels fun just to kind of like have like a sort of, they call them sandboxes, where you're given so much freedom and different options in the game mechanics. So even if I don't want to sit there and drive around, I can go and just like bring the army in on me because I'm using a flamethrower and everybody. Or like in Fable, I cast magic at a civilian, and then all of a sudden all the security guards come rushing, and I'm like, can I kill them all with my magic ability before they get me? You know, it's a similar thing, in my opinion. And it sounds like you pretty much kind of agree with that point, AJ, or do you differ a little bit? I think she might have cut out for a sec.
She might have.
Or she's got her microphone muted.
Sorry. No, I agree with you.
Okay. So, then I'm going to let Archon ask a question, but I just want to say, so when it comes to these games, then, if really there's no real difference other than just the preference of the game style, do you think that a game like Grand Theft Auto is a game that would be quote unquote problematic, or is it just as a preference?
Just as a preference.
Okay. So that's cool. All right, I just wanted to kind of clarify on that because if I'm sure we could probably find someone who would disagree, and if they did, I would love to kind of like either argue or at least kind of clarify, because that's one of the things like I wanted to clarify on is like, is it the fact that it's realistic that bothers you, or is it just the sandbox killing whatever? Which is why I brought up Prototype as a game where my girlfriend and coworker, they were having fun just like fucking around throwing civilians. Like they didn't even use all their powers that I told them about the game. Like you can fly around and all this stuff. They just wanted to grab people and throw them as far as they could into the sea. And I was like, okay. So, but
well, for me, I find it quite boring to just I'm gonna drive around, shoot you, car. Okay, I'm being chased by the cops. I'm gonna drive around some more. Oh, look, there's another person. I'm gonna shoot you, and I'm gonna steal your car. It's just, I don't know. To me, it just isn't very fun.
I can see that because like I might get bored of it sometimes. Like I'll have fun with it for a little bit, but like I said, Grand Theft Auto 4. I think by the time it might not have been the game mechanics, but just by the time I played it, I was getting kind of maybe a little bored with it because I'd already done it so much in the previous games. But just the whole sandbox style, depending on what it is, can be kind of entertaining. But there's an interesting one. Archon, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, because GTA already had kind of a history behind it of being violent. And, it already has a jaded history, if you want to call it that. So I'm just going to bring up hatred. I'm not familiar with AJ, or I'm not aware of how familiar AJ is with it.
I don't know.
Do you know what hatred is?
I don't think she knows what it is.
No.
Okay. And I mean, I don't know much about it either, but from what I've seen and heard, just from trailers and gameplay, basically, it's this guy. I have feedback, by the way.
Test, 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 test. Yeah, I am.
1 second.
I don't know if you got my little chat message, but I actually have to get off here in a second.
Okay. You know what? I would like to bring up hatred too, but it seems like we're just having other issues with the reverberation. So you say you got to leave pretty soon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, Archon.
So like right now or just soon?
Well, just here in a second.
Okay. Here, Archon. I'll tell you what. If AJ, if you're willing to, he just wants to talk about a game that's very controversial recently.
Go for it.
So.
Yeah, we don't have to continue any past that, but I just figured, let's bring in a different game that doesn't have, this kind of history of being, oh, it's a terrible game, it's evil and shit like that. But basically, hatred, from what I've seen, is basically this psychotic man that is pretty much just, loading up on ammo, shoving it in his trench coat. He's got grenades, he's got semi-automatic guns. And all he does, or at least the main point of the game, is to just go around killing random people. Kill innocents, kill cops, kill soldiers, you name it. You can blow up walls, you can blow up buildings, you can basically do whatever the fuck you want. Would you be okay with that game? I mean, obviously I'm not saying would you play that, because that's probably not something you prefer playing. But do you see that as problematic, or is that still, just a game? I figured since we were talking about this, let's go all the way to as violent as possible right now. Go to
I think hatred is like pretty much on the far extreme at this point. I posted a link of just some Google images so you can click on the link real quick, just kind of see what it looks like. And just to clarify, the game, unlike Grand Theft Auto, which has a storyline purpose, from what I understand of hatred, there is no storyline. It's literally just start and kill as many people until you get gunned down by the cops. And the mechanics are basically you can grab people while they're begging and screaming and put them on the curb and blow their heads out from behind and stuff like that.
Would I let a child play this? No.
Oh, no. That's
yeah, I am. Just kind of moseying through your pictures here.
Yeah, you can probably see some of the pictures where they show some kind of shooting people that are on the ground. I'll say while you're kind of looking there, kind of getting an idea, I don't have a problem with this game existing. I will probably maybe glance at it and play it when it finally comes out, if I feel the urge to try it out for myself. But for the most part, it just seems a little bit like too much for my taste. And I know James Archon, you know who I'm talking about, James. He has said that he actually dislikes this game's existence, which would be great to have him for a talk about hatred if you wanted to. Considering he's pretty pro Gamergate, but he does not like the game Hatred, and I think it would be probably even better to have him because he's more knowledgeable on it. But what are your thoughts, AJ? Just for yourself, looking at it.
Just looking at it, like, well, you already know I've played Mortal Kombat, so you know that I have no problem killing and slicing up people. But I don't know. It doesn't look like a game that I would play, but do I mind and care that it exists? I do not. I don't see why people would sit there and try and get it banned or anything. It's like you said earlier. It's considered art, and some people don't think that certain things like poop being put on a canvas is considered art and whatever. But
There is one more game that is also on the far extreme, but it's a little different, and I just thought of it because it was controversial about a few years ago. And are you aware who Penn and Teller is? The Penn and Teller bullshit guy?
Yeah, I know who he is.
Are you aware of him, AJ?
Yeah.
He's the comedian that wears the glasses and he does Penn and Teller's bullshit?
No.
Okay. Well, he had put his 2 cents on this one, defending the game's existence, not so much the content itself. There's a game that was released in Japan. It was called Rapeplay, and it was basically a Sims sort of game that allowed you to rape a family of 3 women, and it was just as it sounds. You had the full control of being able to like basically molest and rape these 3D female figures, right? And that's the whole point of the game. I don't recall if it had a storyline. The last time I saw anything about it was on thatguywiththeglasses.com. One of the guy who reviewed pornographic games had talked about it, and he seemed to be suggesting that there was like a storyline to it. I could probably try and find it on Wikipedia so you can see it. Let's see here. Let me see if I can
Hell,
find
what are
pictures.
those damn dating sims?
But real quick, well, have you heard about this game, Archon?
What was the name of it? I wasn't really paying attention.
Rapeplay.
I think Shrek mentioned it a while ago, but I have not seen or heard of it. Besides that,
should. Oh, no, that's the. Yeah, that should be the link right there. It's just a Google Images. There's nothing I think that is explicit on there, but you should get an idea of what the game is like through the Google Images. And all I did is just type in, for anybody who's listening, for both Hatred and Rapeplay, I've essentially just typed the words into Google and clicked on images, so you can pretty much see exactly what we're seeing right now. So
It looks like anime porn.
it pretty much is. But the thing wasn't the fact that it was pornographic, it was the fact that you're allowed to basically rape the characters in the game.
Excuse me, but it's called hentai. Oh my god.
So what are your thoughts on this game existing? Do you have a problem with that?
Me personally, yeah, just because I'm a girl and that just disgusts me. Yeah, that's kind of gross.
So you don't think they should have been allowed to make it?
I wouldn't say that because, I mean, people got their things that they like, dominatrix or hentai or
50 Shades of
whatever, 50 Shades of Grey. So, no, I wouldn't go as far as to ban it, but it does disgust me.
Yeah, I think that one actually was universally banned in Japan, if I recall correctly. Now, there was a video of Penn Jillette defending the game, but he seemed really kind of like hard put to defend it because he's pretty libertarian when it comes to a lot of things, and he seemed really, really, really struggling to defend it. I will say I don't really have a problem with it existing. You know, there's games that are I think far worse out there on was it not 4chan? What's that website? Newgrounds? I think Newgrounds is the one that has all the flash animations.
Yeah.
I remember Retsupre. You guys probably don't know who Retsupre is, but anybody listening might be familiar. Retsupre was doing a few of the games that they have on there that are like it's like Meat and Fuck Castle or some shit like that. I mean, there's a lot of fucking shit out there, and it's just But if people want to fucking play it, then I mean, it's a free market in my opinion. So When I say I don't have a problem with it existing, that's what I mean. Um, but I completely understand if you find it offensive because it's essentially a game that allows you to simulate raping people. But that's again, it's on that far opposite extreme, along with hatred. These are games that I think are just designed to cater to a very niche audience, but they offend people, so people want to ban them. And that's why I was wondering is with both hatred and this game, and there's too many countless ones that I could think of.
Like
Which one?
Shrek's game that he's making.
Oh, I just saw you type it in. Do you want to
Yeah.
name it?
Sure. It's. I don't know if that's the name, but basically the premise is that you get to rape your sister. Well, the idea is that you're trying to rape your sister, and apparently there's always an option in dialogue trees to rape your sister, but you never are actually able to do it because there's always it's kind of like convenient censoring. Like Austin Powers walks in with a couple of melons blocking his dick or whatever. There's always some event that conveniently stops you from raping your sister type of thing. So I mean, yeah, it's kind of fucked up, but at the same time, hey, he should be able to make it, even if it doesn't actually simulate rape.
So games like this are often brought up as like, are video games going too far? Do you think this is a case of video games going too far, AJ?
Yeah.
You think so?
A little bit.
but at the same time, hold on. At the same time, if you feel that the video games are going too far, like, do you propose that there's anything that needs to be done about it? Like, because I mean, you said that you don't really feel like they should be banned or outlawed or something like that. But
that was what I was going to ask.
Yeah, well, that goes back to what I was saying before. If you don't like the game, you're not going to play it. So I don't particularly like it. It looks disgusting and kind of disturbs me, but yeah, I'm not going to ban it or go sign a petition or go out of my way to try and get this game off the shelves.
I want to ask a question. I'll start with Archon first on this. Both these games that allow you to do terrible things to people, again, besides the fact that they're a little bit more realistic and the stuff is controversial, what's kind of like the big difference between this and a game like Fable or The Sims or Grand Theft Auto, which allow you to do similarly horrible things to individuals? I know The Sims is not nearly as bad, but you can still drown kids in a pool and force them to pee themselves by locking them, like, designing a room where they can't go to the bathroom and then they're forced to defecate on themselves. You can still do horrific things to characters. Is it the fact that it's just essentially murder and rape, those two particular topics, that make these games so offensive? Archon, you want to start off?
I think it's a mixture of a couple things. Sure, the fact that it's murder and rape adds a little bit to it. But, and obviously I'm borrowing this line from a CSI, so obviously, it's probably not completely accurate, but it still rings true, at least in my opinion, all the same. And I'm sure some actual, cops will probably say the same thing. But, they say that some murderers, some criminals that murder, choose to go for the quick and painless death, like the fast, gunshot or the fast stabbing, other than like over strangling someone, because strangling them is usually a much more personal and involved thing because it requires your hands being on someone's neck or you holding a wire around someone's neck and not necessarily, you pulling the trigger, because, you can mentally dissociate from, but it was the gun that killed her, not me, or something like that. They can rationalize it away. But with strangling, it's not necessarily the case. I think a lot of times with video games, there's a lot of that plays into it too. In SimCity, you don't actually see all the people getting dismembered before your eyes. Sure, you see some people, running out of the city as a tornado comes or whatever, but you don't necessarily see it in graphic detail to where you can feel bad about it.
Okay.
And it also plays into the fact that after a certain point, death becomes just another statistic.
So what you're basically saying is that there's a little bit more of an insidious nature between that might be going on in the mind of a person playing games like Hatred or Rapeplay or games of a similar nature, that, as the CSI example is, that they kind of feel more of like, I guess, you getting off on it, like getting off on killing a person, getting off on raping them, getting off on doing this extreme
Right.
harm, versus like
Right.
the quick kill of like maybe Grand Theft Auto just running through people real quick.
Right, but to that extent, you got to make the distinction that, sure, the people that are actually disturbed and might actually be interested in doing this may very well be attracted to, games like Hatred and stuff like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone that plays it is like that.
Right.
I'm trying to think of the saying now. There's a causal, there's a causal link, but not a corollary link, or something like that. I can't remember the exact saying right now, but
causation is not the same as correlation.
Yes, thank you. Causation is not the same as correlation. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Real quick, AJ, because I know you're saying that you were wanting to leave. I just want to go ahead and sort of wrap this topic up, and then we'll just do the final words. So, but Archon, go ahead and say your last bit, and then I'm going to give it to her. Is that okay?
Yeah. I really enjoyed this because I enjoy just discussing stuff in general. But like going back to what you were saying too, is that I feel like if you say that like a game is going too far, and I mean it's fine that you say that, but at the same time, I feel that saying it goes too far implies that something needs to happen because you violated some kind of boundary that we've set. Well, usually when you set a boundary, there's a punishment for violating such boundaries. But I don't necessarily feel that Hatred is violating such a boundary that's gone too far. I just think it just happens to be an extreme that not a lot of people will fall under, and that's fine. It's a way of someone expressing their artistic abilities.
All right, AJ. So, yeah. I know like we kind of covered a lot there in the last couple minutes. You want to just kind of give your thoughts on this topic as we wrap this up?
Well, yeah, for Hatred, but for rape, I'm not sure if I agree with that wholeheartedly for that aspect of that. But
what about the insidious nature, sort of the CSI example he kind of Archon brought up? Do you think that might be why some people would play games like that, is because that they get off on it a little bit more? Or do you think that like everybody who plays those games would be like that? There's, like, as Archon also said, that there's nobody that would just play it that just like is like playing it for whatever. Because as I brought up an example, there was a guy who reviewed Rapeplay and made sort of a comedic video out of it. I don't know if he would be getting off on it the same way.
Well, I know people, because there's like what's that show, SVU, where they have rape and murder and whatever, and there's a lot of people who watch that show. I know there is, because it's still going on.
Mm-hmm.
And
unfortunately, after the Gamergate episode.
Sad, because they're not always written very well, in my opinion.
Oh, did you see that gaming episode recently, AJ?
I saw.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, just curious. Keep going.
But I'm pretty sure that those people aren't wanting to go out and perform those acts. So.
Okay. Now, just to and the final point, as Archon, I think you said, like, when you're talking about going too far, you want to reiterate that last part real quick one more time, and then I fill it back to you, AJ.
Yeah, basically the implication that video games like Hatred or Rapeplay going too far, it's like, well, there you've kind of implied that there's some kind of standard that you can't exceed, and once you've exceeded that, then there's usually some kind of punishment, because if you break the rules of what a game should fall under, then usually there's punishments for violating the rules.
So AJ,
and so,
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So AJ, what are your what are your response to that? Or what are your thoughts? Do you agree or do you disagree? Because I think you said that with the Hatred you're fine, but the Rapeplay one you're not. So like, I think Archon, what you're trying to say is, like, by saying it's going too far, it should not be on the market, right?
Well, not necessarily on the market, but she's implying that there should be some kind of consequences for them creating a game that goes.
Not really. I'm not really implying consequences, but somewhat.
Well, hang on, Archon, hang on. Go ahead and clarify what you're meaning. AJ, go ahead and clarify what you're meaning. Sorry.
So when you say consequences, you mean like what exactly do you mean exactly?
Well, okay, so let me just give you an example. When someone goes too far, like in an argument, let's say you and I were having this really intense disagreement about, let's say, pedophilia. For example, I said that I don't care if guys go out and rape children. It's okay, go for it. And you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? How dare you? And then, I punch you in the face. Would you say that's going too far? I would.
Yeah.
I don't know if that example translates very well to this. I think a better thing would be a verbal, like saying that, okay, do you know who the Amazing Atheist is, AJ?
Well, hold on.
Because I was going to say he used a good example.
Hold on, sorry.
Okay.
Hold on. It doesn't necessarily. It's not perfect, obviously, but it does kind of. It does work in this situation because there's a disagreement or a fight, as some people would say. But as we all know, a fight is kind of subjective. It can be a verbal or a physical. Well, but considering it's a verbal fight, taking it to being physical is going too far. That's my point.
The reason I was going to bring up the Amazing Atheist is because people said he went too far on a particular topic.
Okay.
He got into an argument on, I think, Reddit with some feminists, and they were talking about the subject of rape. So this is a good example to bring up. And eventually he got pissed off a couple of them because one of them was like really shitposting him. And eventually, after they were kind of like attacking him on Reddit, he said, "You know what? Fuck you, you stupid, ugly cunt. I'm glad you got raped. I hope you get raped again," or something to that effect, right? And he, he got called out by a lot of people because they said he went too far. Is that what you're kind of implying there, Archon? By saying he went too far?
What's up to that? Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you say that is an example of going too far, AJ?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you say that there should be a repercussion for that? Even if maybe not necessarily a legal one, but it could be a moral one or a social one. A
social one, yeah.
Well, yeah, he should feel guilty himself, but do I think that he should be punished? No.
Okay, so like a repercussion, when you say a consequence, implying going too far, you're saying that there should be like a social consequence, like maybe people like call him out a little bit on it, right?
Yeah.
I basically, in my opinion, say that a consequence of something going too far would be in some way being negatively affected by those that you harmed or caused distress to, or by a third party that's objective.
Right. What I'm trying to clarify is how she's using it. That's what I'm trying to say. I kind of got what you're trying to say. You're saying like consequence meaning like a legal sort of aspect, right?
Not even necessarily a legal consequence, because even and it doesn't even have to be some sentient punishment. Just the fact that people, because I can't remember how many he lost, but apparently after that incident, he lost at least 700 or 800 followers.
Oh yeah, no, he
just got tired of him.
He took a beating for that, and I know he apologized several times, and he still gets brought up to this day. And this is like 4 years ago, I think that it happened.
Yeah.
They actually brought it up on the Drunken Peasants one time, and he had to basically, once again, kind of publicly apologize. Do I think he went too far? Yes, but I think it's also understandable because in the heat of the moment, especially on internet chat, it's very easy to cross that line, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I've said pretty horrible stuff when I've gotten heated, and you're kind of like, fuck, I probably shouldn't have said it, and probably wouldn't have if I was talking to an actual person and not like a person's screen name with chat.
Yeah, screen name with
text.
But that's just in the case of him. I want to kind of get back towards the going too far with the games. So when you're like, let me put it this way: when you say a game's gone too far, I get that you're saying that there shouldn't be like repercussion, correct, AJ?
Yeah.
There shouldn't be like repercussion with like the law. but should there be like a social repercussion? Like if the person makes that game, should there be some sort of like consequence, not necessarily legally, but should there be consequence by like the gaming scene or gaming community, by either people who finance them, people who write about them, people who play the games? Should there be anything from that? And if so, what would you say it should be?
For a game like rape play
or hate or hatred, but I think rape play is the one that you're particularly focused on.
Right.
Yeah, if whatever the journalists are going negatively against it, then yeah, I feel they should have it's freedom of speech. They can write whatever they want to write about it.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Negative things.
Do you disagree with the journalists being able to write negatively about it, Archon?
It's not even so much that I disagree that they should be able to do it, because I mean they can, as long as they're not slandering or libeling anyone, they can write basically whatever the hell they want. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
It's basically it's hard to really say that that the press is such a negative thing, because you know what they say, no press is bad press. Hatred is a perfect fucking example. There was this huge campaign saying that Hatred is the most vile piece of shit game out there, and what did it do? All it did was drive up sales. So I mean, journalists writing negative reviews and shit like that about it isn't necessarily going to be a consequence of it. And that's why I'm kind of asking this question, because I really don't see that there is really such a consequence besides some kind of imposed one, either from within the group, like the boss saying, okay, we're not going to be making this game in the future, or we're not going to be making additional content.
Archon, let me interrupt you real quick. Because I think AJ, you got to go like really quickly, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go, but thank you for allowing me to talk with you guys.
Yeah, because I don't want to end this exactly on the topic of rape play. I just want to say, like, can you just like real quick sum up like your just general thoughts on everything we've discussed, maybe in like 30 seconds to a minute?
Oh gosh.
You could be female devs. It could be hatred. It could be Grand Theft Auto. It could be Fable.
To me, women in the gaming community, I don't really see the sexist thing. I guess maybe if somebody pointed it out to me or gave me better examples than what I've seen, maybe I could probably get steered, but me personally, I haven't seen it.
But there are games that you do find problematic based on just this recent conversation, obviously. So, but those games are sort of on the extreme outlier, correct?
Right.
Okay, so you don't, for the majority of games, you don't really have a problem. It's just those extremes that you think could probably have some sort of conversation as we've been having.
Right.
Okay. I think that kind of sums it up fairly well. Is there anything else you want to add to that? No? Okay. Archon, if you want, we can just wrap up our end after I let her go, and then we can just end this. Sound good?
Sure.
All right. I'm sorry I didn't want to interrupt you, but as she says, she's got to get going. So, sis, I love you very much. I am so glad that I got to have you get on. I really wish we could have had a professional dev in, and unfortunately he had to leave before we got started. So I'll have to try and facilitate a conversation next time to really let you get some one-on-one time with an actual developer. So hopefully your schedule will be free the next week or so. And if you even want to get back into another discussion this weekend, we should be having another one, I think, on Saturday or Sunday.
All right.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we will talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Okay. And so I am so sorry, but she texted me, she's like, I gotta get going like right now, and I was like, oh, hey Archon boss, let me just real quick. So I guess real quick, I was gonna let both you guys have the final word on this topic, but let's just go ahead and let's wrap up Rape Play. Let you give your final thought one more time.
Yeah, see, that's one of the things that, and I mean, I don't really have a problem with her feeling that way because I can kind of understand how she feels about it because it is probably a fairly personal thing about rape play and everything. But at the same time, you know, the journalists writing bad reviews isn't necessarily, as I said, a negative thing to affect them. And the only way to really have some kind of consequence in that sense would be something that would have to be like an active agent. You know, there would have to be someone, you know, instigating a will on this to, you know, somehow either punish them or say, okay, you know what, we're not going to be making these games anymore, or we're not producing any further content after this has been released because we've had too much, you know, negativity.
Basically, a negative prestige, if you will. Like they've been essentially become demonized to the point where they have lost their ability to produce content as a group.
Right, something that would negatively affect the business.
That's what I was trying to figure out, if that's what she was implying, which she might not have been, but that's why I was trying, and I didn't mean to be a dick to you, boss. I was trying to kind of like more or less just say like which one you're saying is going too far, because I think that there might be a point to be made whether or not something like that if it crosses a line, should they be like publicly demonized. But I mean that's a discussion that I think we might get some of our friends from like the lewd gamer websites, if they'd be so willing to be on. I think it'd be better to have them in that conversation.
Right. Let me finish what I was saying though, because I keep getting interrupted. You did.
I'm sorry, faggot.
Yeah, but basically, yeah. The only way that there's going to be any consequences for them is if someone acts on that, you know, because even if they get, even if the fans are saying, nah, this is a piece of shit, that's not necessarily going to negatively affect them unless like there's a huge percentage of them that don't buy the game or, you know, do returns or something like that. And, you know, other than, you know, the business, you know, axing people or, you know, the law becoming involved, which would be silly because, you know, you can't really enforce that kind of shit unless there's someone enacting some kind of consequence on them. There's not really any way to do that. So when she says it is going too far, it sounds like she's trying to imply that. And I mean, obviously, I think there was kind of a disconnect between her and what she was saying because I
don't think that she was actually implying that. When I think she's saying going too far, okay. I think what is actually being said is that she thinks that like more of a like why would you do that is kind of more of the line. You know what I mean?
Well, I think I can explain it slightly better than that even. She was implying it, but she wasn't necessarily advocating it. She doesn't think that they should actually be, you know, like actively punished by the cops or anything, but, you know, the words she used do imply that. And that's fine. She might have misspoke or something, but, you know, that's fine.
I just, when she said, like, going too far, I don't think that was implied that they need to be repercussions. I know that that's what you're thinking, that she said that.
That's not what I'm saying, dude.
That she was implying it. I don't think that was the case. Just from what I'm coming from, I think what she was referring to was that this is like kind of like a step in a direction. Like, why would someone go this direction? As one saying going too far, like you know, like almost like a mad scientist. Why have you've gone too far with this craziness? If that makes sense, like it's more of
okay. I think I know. Okay, you're basically using a separate definition of too far, then.
And I think that was what she was using.
Basically, what you're saying is okay, you've gone too deep into the water, and you know it's basically you've gone deeper than you probably should have because it's, you know, not necessarily dangerous, but you know, I think I know what you
mean. Right, and the reason I say that is because I know my sis, you know, pretty well when some conversations.
You fucking white knight.
I am white knighting for my sister. Oh dear me. No, I just like if I had thought that she was implying that, but because you had brought it up, that's why I was trying to get her to clarify. Is like, do you mean this in this way or in this way? Which I was trying to see, and you know, she kept saying like I don't want consequence in that manner. So I think that what she was trying to say is like, I'm not trying to imply that they deserve to have like some sort of punishment, more that they just like why would you do this? Like you've gone too far at this point. You know what I mean?
I think
using it.
The disconnect between me and her then was that,
and I think
that she was.
And I think the reason is because again, with my sis and even Scotty, they are outside as this little Gamergate peripheral bubble that a lot of these arguments that you're talking about have had occurred. They're sort of like looking as like complete sort of neutral bystanders, and that's why I think like there's a separate definition that she's using it. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. But what I meant, like, I'm trying to think of what I was going to say now. Damn it.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say it, and then I was just like, fuck it, let him go. But
Oh, she just texted me too. She said, "Thank you for having me on. I'm sorry I wasn't a better conversationalist. Love you."
She's fine.
Oh, Amanda, if you hear this, you were just fine. You were fine. You were great.
Like sure, yeah. She paused and thought, and there was some quiet spots, but that's fine. Not everyone's perfect. She was fine.
Yeah, I'm happy with pausing to take a moment to think. The problem is that we kept having so much technical difficulties. I was trying to figure out, did we lose you versus are you thinking?
Right, know the difference, yeah.
Yeah, that was my thing. So
okay. I remember what I was going to say now, so let me say it before I forget.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I think the disconnect between me and her in that conversation was that, she kept saying, no, that's not what I mean, or that's not what I'm implying. But she didn't say what she did mean at the time. And I mean, I understand that you were trying to clarify for her, but I mean, she didn't specify quite as far as I probably needed. Because, when you finally said it, going too far on this scale type of thing, not going too far as in you're exceeding the boundaries. I just didn't see that because, it's basically like no, I'm not. Yeah, you are. No, I'm not. Yeah, I am. Or yeah, you are, right. Type of thing. And I wasn't seeing what she was talking about necessarily.
Right, and that's why I kind of kept interrupting you periodically, just to be like okay, I wanted her to actually clarify her position. Unfortunately, because it's they're getting off work late, both Scotty and my sis. They're kind of like we only have so much time, and this conversation was already supposed to be kind of coming to a close, and then we got to a kind of a small heated discussion with you guys on like what is your positions exactly, and I'm like this is something that would need like an extra 20-30 minutes probably to clarify. So maybe when she listens to this she could kind of be like okay, hey, this is what I meant, and maybe she did mean it as you thought, but based on the fact that she kept saying no, that's not what I mean, and how I kind of think I know my sister's brain works. I think it was more of just kind of like a shock of like oh my gosh, why would you do this? Versus like they've gone too far. This needs to be dealt with, right?
Right.
So, because she's pretty libertarian in a lot of aspects. I mean, she's like advocates a lot of kind of like freedom to do whatever you want. And as she brought up with the game journalists being able to write negative reviews, what's the first thing that she said? Freedom of speech, right? That's why she said, no, they should be allowed to write negative reviews because it's freedom of speech. And that's not her advocating it because she's a social justice warrior. She went right to the libertarian aspect. I have the right to say what I want, which is something I think maybe we should do a discussion in of itself, is like the difference between subjective reviews and objective, where I want to say how I feel about it, and someone's like, hey, you should be giving an informed opinion on a game for your audience. I think that would be a pretty good discussion of itself.
Yeah.
So let's say let's go ahead and just wrap this up in the next 2 minutes, boss. I'm going to give you the final word since you're the last guest on, and then we will kill this recording. Sound good?
Yeah. I think basically I've covered all of what I want to say throughout the discussion, but yeah, in short, I don't see the issue that a lot of the SJWs, well, not even necessarily the SJWs, but a lot of the people in the game dev side of things say that there's problems with women getting into the industry. I don't see that, because a lot of the people within the industry that are women say that there isn't. Mm-hmm. It's basically coming down to my experiences clash with their experiences. And, unless there's like an objective kind of investigation into it, there's not going to be, one side that's completely correct. But from what I've seen, they need to prove that there's actually some kind of barrier to entry before we accept their claims.
And I have the perfect friend who I think would be able to argue their point on that a little bit more. And I think it would be better to have your friend that is arguing your point, because she would be able to hold that ground a little better. I think it'd be interesting to have those two kind of discuss it, because and as long as they held it in a fairly professional manner, discussing it, and I think that they should be able to. I think that would be very good, interesting to have. As any other final word on basically everything that went down as far as this discussion?
No, it actually went a lot better than I thought it was, because I thought, once our friend over in Germany dropped out, I thought it was going to be kind of slow, or it would end too quickly or something. But it lasted long, and I was glad about that. And I'm glad I made it to this one instead of the last one where my damn data was gone.
Well, I'm glad you made this one. And Scotty and Amanda, AJ, whatever, if you guys managed to support, thank you guys very much for being in this. Sounded like, based on what she just sent me and what Scott said at the end, sounded like they had fun. Yeah, even if we couldn't get game devs giving their personal take, I think it was able to give us a jumping off point, and we kind of stayed sort of relatively close to the topic at hand too. I mean, went from game development talking to women in games, and it still kind of brought it close to the perspective of, are these games sort of sexist, or do they have sexist attitudes that might offend them? And as you can tell, it's just my sister who herself, she thought that gaming was a guy scene. She still said that there was a lot of things that she didn't really have problems with. There was a couple things that she did, and then that made for a good discussion on okay, so what's the difference between those? And that's what I like to do. I like arguing, but I like doing it in a way where they can express their point, and then I can kind of argue with them, and then we can kind of get some clarity, right? And
right, yeah.
Ultimately, she came down to what she said: preference, which I'm fine with preference.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
I mean, as I said, James does not like the game Hatred, and so.
But James is a massive pussy.
Well, he's also a flapaholic.
Yep.
All right, boss. Let's end this recording, and then we can just talk off record. Sound good?
Sound good.
Okay. Let me go ahead and hit